Remember this? I thought not. How about this?
Everybody gets a point tonight for Nashville. My goodness, what an embarrassment for the Maple Leafs here at home.
I thought you'd puke all over your screen while curling up into the fetal position, repeating, "Never watch his videos again," like you're in a highly regarded Coppola film. Sorry to spoil your breakfast/lunch/dinner/Tavares high. I'm still getting used to a world where you're not used to this anymore. You have standards again. You have expectations again. You have belief again. It comes with the promise of the team's stability and core. Brendan Shanahan, Mike Babcock, and Kyle Dubas are a legitimate first-tier triumvirate in management with old and new age perspective collaborating for success now and in the future. The core members right now are Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Nazem Kadri, Morgan Riley, Frederick Anderson, and now John Tavares? Come on! How can you not be doing backflips off the CN Tower for this team right now? While the course the Shannon plan is set for the Maple Leafs is impressive enough, it's even more incredible with how broken and debilitated a state this franchise was in just a few winters ago. The original six club does rank second in Stanley Cups won and boasts some of the best alumni in the game's history reflecting that prestige. However, for the last decade or so, that iconic culture, proudly restored today, was lost along the way due to gross mismanagement. Some may argue that the fuse lighter was GM John Ferguson Jr.'s firing of head coach Pat Quinn after he failed to make the playoffs the year after the lockout. He only guided the Leafs to their first 300-point seasons in franchise history, winning 7 playoff rounds in his 7-year tenure. Then came the infamous trade of the rights to some kid named Tuukka Rask for Andrew Raycroft, who would post a .879 save percentage in 91 appearances for Toronto. Rask? Well, the Lee Stempniak for Alex Steen deal, the low-risk draft mentality that landed them Luke Schenn, Tyler Biggs, Stuart Percy, Freddie Gauthier, and more. The jerseys on the ice, 4 different head coaches, 4 different general managers, 3 consecutive unbelievable collapses.
Voodoo, wizardry, and bull!
Yes, that too. It was not belief, but apathy that had sunk in for a new generation of fans. The team went a full decade without making the playoffs in an 82-game season. Thank you, James Reimer, for that caveat. The franchise hadn't been to a Stanley Cup final in over 50 years. The status quo needed to change, but it never did, and never would. Until it did. Bringing on Brendan Shanahan as the team's president was unconventional and a little risky initially. Like all of us, he committed an act that he would have had to apologize for if social media existed back then, as the internet would have vilified him and distracted from real issues. But as it turned out, it was an essential foundation to lay going forward. As a Hall of Famer, former league executive, and widely parodied head of the Department of Player Safety, there was some structural credibility that Shanny brought with him to the Leafs. It wouldn't translate right away, but it was a start. I mean, the team needed to do something after losing 12 of their last 14 games to complete the unholy trinity of collapses. With the Irish jig in the fold, it wouldn't take long for his influence to be felt. Leading up to the 2014 NHL draft, prospect William Nylander was ranked the second highest European skater in the class. However, due to his father Michael's selfish reputation throughout his NHL career, there were whispers that he could inherit this and slip. And he did, all the way to number 8 when the Leafs were on the clock. They could have been cautious and swung for contact like always, but they had some added intel this time. Shanahan spoke to Michael and William for almost 2 hours the afternoon of the draft. He played with Willie's dad in New York. He knew them, and he knew enough to give his valued input. It was enough to win GM Dave Notice over, and the Leafs doubled down on their first pillar of their rejuvenation. It was a statement selection by the organization and by Shanahan, who would shake the front office the rest of the summer. In came 28-year-old Kyle Dubas, who would fill the role of assistant GM after leaving a tremendous legacy in the Sioux as their GM. The reason for his hiring? He wasn't tied to old ideas. Another month passed and Brandon Pridham followed as the second assistant, majoring in capology. London Knights GM Mark Hunter was brought on as the director of player personnel in October, another OHL trailblazer with a staunch resume. The blueprint, in its early stages, was starting to take shape. Soon, things were going to be different. But not soon enough.
When you get beat like that in professional sport, it's embarrassing. And to get beat like that in front of your home fans, it compounds the issue. So
11, 18, 2014, 9, and 2. A string of numbers that knowing forgot to put in before EE. The Randy Carlyle Dave Notice era, though it would extend until January for the head coach and April for the GM, ended that night. After getting smacked 6-2 by the 2014-15 Buffalo Sabres, let me repeat, the 2014-15 Buffalo Sabres, the Leafs provided another wonderful encore against Nashville. Their 9-2 bloodletting symbolized everything that Shanahan wanted to bring the team out of. It was a relapse worse than relapse or revival. Yeah, it was a not-so-subtle signal that the organization wouldn't be able to rise to new heights with the brain trust currently in place. It was the start, fittingly enough, of a scorched earth. Even though the Leafs hovered around a playoff spot in January, Shanahan and company knew that it would be fool's gold and that it would hurt their long-term viability. The decision was made to fire Carlisle on January 5th, and the team went on to lose 33 of their last 42 games. That is real. That is not a typo. Peter Horacek, bless his soul, couldn't control a toxic environment that saw Phil Kessel and Dion Phaneuf get vilified after the firing. After Game 82, with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment's blessing, Shanahan poured the gasoline and lit the match. Horacek, Nonis, Steve Spott, Chris Denis, Rick Senquois, Carlton.
Disqualified!
Okay, not Carlton, but you get it. Shanny cleaned house and the search was on for a new general manager and head coach. The team would now be completely led by his hired guns, and hopes were high that a certain bench boss would find his way up the 401 to accelerate this process. On a certain Wednesday in May, those hopes turned into a reality.
But if you think there's no pain coming, there's pain coming.
And you were totally fine with it hearing that come out of his mouth versus any other. Mike Babcock is Canada, Sasky, McGill, the gold medal, the Stanley Cup. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Looking for a fresh start after toiling with the Detroit Red Wings team that failed to see the writing on the wall, Babs came to Toronto looking to help a player he once coached build it back up. The organization now had their new age, player, and hard-nosed coaching perspectives together ready to plan out the summer ahead, which would again be eventful. First, it was the draft, where the Leafs' pain aided them in selecting 4th overall. With Hunter now in the fold, the Leafs had another inside track to a high-profile player, much like he did 2 years prior at the OHL draft. He called Mitch Marner to the stage. Other picks in this draft included Travis Dermott, Jeremy Bracco, and Andrew Nielsen in back-to-back-to-back rounds. Much like the organization, the team was starting to set the foundation. As the new guard came in, however, judgments were made on the old. Tyler Biggs, after spending years with the organization, was shipped to the Pittsburgh Penguins for a package that included Kasperi Kapanen and a 2016 first-round pick that would come in handy later on. It was the end of a wasted era in Toronto where Biggs was never appreciated for what he gave the organization every day. Like Phil Kessel, who was also in the deal. He was nothing special, bad in the room, snappy with the media for asking stupid questions, unfairly portrayed at the butt end of many forced food jokes. Leading scorer on the team each year, he was there. Anyone could do that on the Leafs. The summer didn't stop with intrigue. 20 days after the deal, the Leafs had their general manager, Cliff Fletcher. Again? Nah, just kidding. Lou Lamoriello. It was the third high-profile NHL hire the team had made in 14 months, and it happened to be the man that drafted their president in 1987. 8 Stanley Cups now decorated the Leafs tag team, and each brought their own valuable insight from their years in the industry. With the Dubas-Hunter pairing and the Shanahan-Babcock-Lamoriello combo in place, it was time to do what the Leafs should have been doing a long time ago. Lose. With a purpose. What you were looking at is the Leafs' opening night lineup from the 2015-16 season. This should be preserved and hung in a museum for all of us to remember that all dreams start with an Arcabello. And some boys. The tone was set in the first 10 games, as the Leafs lost 9 of them en route to owning the league's worst record and the highest chances to draft Arizona-born superstar, Austin Matthews. In the midst of the glorious pain, the team made its second high-profile trade in a symbolic sever from the Brian Burke era. Matt Fratton, who was under the radar for the better part of his time. Got the bait, it wasn't funny the first time, douche! Dion Phaneuf, who wore the scarlet letter C and bore much criticism throughout his 5.5 seasons with the Leafs, could finally lead another Canadian team to the conference finals and subsequently hurt them later by not waiving his no-move clause. Sound familiar? It was also a 9-player deal with a bunch of jersey swapping and future cap savings. There was Pridham's time to shine. His second major moment next to the Nathan Horton for David Clarkson deal. But the Leafs still needed one more intangible come April 30th. Luck. Fortunately for them, they were preparing for this day 2 years running. And as we all know,
luck favors the prepared.
The first overall selection in the 2016 NHL draft belongs to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
After a decade of virtually zero signature wins, everything was snowballing. Matthews was a generational talent, one the Leafs hadn't possessed since, well, he sounds pretty good. While the prospect of getting an elite centerman had everyone frothing at the mouth, the team still needed a bona fide last line of defense between the pipes. There's where that first round pick in the Kessel deal came in. Lamoriello, much like he did with Vancouver in acquiring Corey Schneider, cleared the crease for Anaheim with the acquisition of Frederik Andersen. He was the stable masked man the Leafs were looking for. Now, on to the exciting thing.
Toronto proud to announce from Zurich, Men's League Switzerland, Austin Matthews.
The pain paid off. The Leafs now had 3 pillars up front to build on in a rapidly accelerated rebuild. The only question was, when were they going to make an impact? The answer to that came way sooner than anyone expected.
Got in front, Matthews scores! A hat-trick! Oh my goodness! Nylander moving in, puts it across in front, he scores! Matthews! What a luminescent night for Austin Matthews! Incredible!
They might have lost the battle against the Sens, but that war looks like it will be one-sided for years to come. Matthews' 4-goal game wasn't just an individual spectacle in its own right, but an emblematic event. It may not have been that year, but sooner than everyone thought, the Leafs would be back in cup contention. There was something to cheer for again. There was something to be proud of again. There was something to believe in again. In a comeback season that would have been cliche as that pun if it were a movie script, the Leafs youngsters guided the team from worst to birth. Matthews scored 40 goals to set a Leafs rookie record. Marner set a franchise rookie mark for assists with 42. Big Willie Style carved his name into the freshman books with 9 power play goals and a record 12-game point streak. Overall, as a team, Toronto's rookies potted 123 goals and 304 points, both team records. The Leafs went on to drop their first-round series with the Washington Capitals, but it was house money at that point. They wore down the President's Trophy winners in a 6-game defeat, and in the process they gained essential experience customary in failure. The organization and its faithful have been numb to disappointment over the decades, but there was never really a sense of the same optimism. The future, instead of bleak, was never so bright. That hopeful spirit carried into this last season. The Leafs had customarily followed up heart-wrenchers with heartbreakers in the past, so it was fitting that they fared even better on the successful side. Their young energy and competent structure drew San Jose Sharks legend Patrick Marleau, who spent 19 seasons with one club, to start a new chapter at 38 years old. It's unlikely that they would have drawn a big fish like that just a few seasons before, so that was another win in itself. Even without Matthews for 20 games, Toronto only posted their best regular season in franchise history. They broke more records like Simpson broke Grimes, 49 wins, 29 home victories, 105 points. All those franchise marks belong to the 2017-18 Leafs. Andersen set a personal milestone with his 38th win to etch his name in the Leafs record book for most wins in a season by a backstopper. However, with higher expectations, they couldn't slay the dragon against the Boston Bruins, and the team dropped another first-round decision, this time in 7 games. It was another bitter lesson to learn for a team itching to prove its regular season success is no fluke. The latest first-round exit carried not only short-term disappointment, but long-term questions. Tyler Bozak and James Van Riemsdyk, 2 grizzled Leafs who were kept through the rejuvenation, walked into unrestricted free agency. Lamoriello sensed the phasing out and stepped down, joining the New York Islanders in an effort to keep John Tavares. Hunter and the team mutually parted ways. Cogs in the machine of on-ice exuberance and off-ice stability were loose. Luck favored the prepared. Dubas, 32 now, was chosen to replace Lou and will certainly be a fascinating story to follow as he brings new age ideas into the forefront as one of 31 to hold his position. He didn't have to wait long for his first challenge, going up against the man who groomed him in a negotiation battle for the biggest free agent prize in NHL history, on Canada Day no less. Like other Shanahan hires before him, Dubas had his signature moment weeks into his role as general manager. Johnny Star Wars from Naboo. If you didn't think the Leafs were primed for cup contention before with competent management and young stars, please check yourself if this doesn't move the needle. Yes, the defense. Yes, Nylander trade. Yes, how will they keep it all together? Hold it! Think about where you were 4 years ago. I was recovering from an A-push final that I still have brain scars from. You guys were probably drowning in apathy, thinking a day like July 1st would never come. Shanahan? He had vision. This glimpse was multiplied after every hire, every draft, every trade, every bounce, every purposeful loss, every progressive win. Shanahan turned into Nylander, Nylander to Babcock, Babcock to Marner, Marner to Lamoriello, Lamoriello to Matthews, Matthews to Dubas, Dubas to Tavares. The Laughs to the Leafs. The Tavares signing puts an exclamation point on one of the greatest turnarounds in NHL history. Yes, the logistics and how the team will keep its personnel will be important, but the fact that he's in Toronto speaks to how the hockey world regards the franchise now. The pride has returned. Jerseys will color the seats instead of the ice. The storied tradition will live on through an on-ice product that has more than a realistic shot for the next several years to end a drought that's plagued the franchise for over half a century. There's a reason to be excited. There's a reason to be proud. There's a reason to believe. But seriously, Matt Fratton, he was a damn trooper.